Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. This episode, we're going to talk about the downside of POD. Let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast, episode 218. It is great to be back with you all. I'm Josiah, and as always, joining me for this podcast, the co-host, Travis Ross from Make Your Mark Design. Travis, top of the evening to you.
Top of the evening to you as well.
Top of the evening. How's things going there at old Make Your Mark Design?
Oh yeah, we're still getting orders and trying to get
your mark.
Making our mark. That's right. Yeah. Finished up a big order this weekend, and then as soon as he came and got it, he like called me back and said, "Hey, can I do some more?" And so doing just sent him another order thing and an order form. Yeah, and then I don't know if anybody ever goes to Make Your Mark Design, the website, makeyourmark.design, but kind of redid that whole deal on the front end and connected with a company that allows me to kind of sell in bulk and really not touch any of it. So it's pretty cool. If you want to check that out, you want to ask me about that, you can ask me about that later. Probably should have saved that for a point of interest sometime, but it's a cool little cool company that is allowing me to do that. It is an invite only, and I knew a guy, and so the guy introduced me to the other guy, and then that guy said, "Here you go." But it allows me to yeah, it is, but it allows me to like sell stuff without touching it. But then also they can still reach out, and I can still obviously take on doing a lot of laser patch hats lately. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah. One of our former Marla actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm from Joy House up in Estes." Yeah. She wanted me to do some more hats. So doing some for her, got those on the way. And then a couple other people, have been reaching out to me for those patch hats, which is really cool. Hope long awesome. May it last.
Yes, hopefully longevity and all of the great success in the future. And of course, another thing people should know that happened over the weekend. I mean, you and I have seen each other already this weekend, but you won.
There it is.
You won the poker night, and that is Travis's victory photo. There was 9 of us, and lots of new faces around the table, but it came down to the 4 usual suspects that it typically comes down to. Myself included, but yeah, it was a great night. It was one of the longer games we've had in a while, actually. Just because the number of people. Usually we're out of there by like 10:30 or 11 now, but there was just so many people, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think this photo was actually taken like right about midnight, so didn't get home till probably 12:20, 12:30.
Yeah, it was a good time. fun was had.
Thanks for bringing that up, man. I appreciate that. Well, while you've been gone the last couple of weeks, I've been holding down the fort. I did one episode. What was it? Episode 216. It was a interview that I did at Printing United with Cole Lundstrom, which is really cool. A lot of cool insights in that one. And then last week I talked about the power of consistency, but both weeks I've talked about the fact that you weren't here, and it's because of some changes that are going on in your life. And some pretty cool things have happened in your life lately. And I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of you that have been following the show for a while, you know that Print on Demand cast hasn't been really, or not Print on Demand cast, but Print on Demand. I haven't been in the industry and the day-to-day of it for almost 3 years now. And so Beginning of this year, I stepped into a job with the placement company where we help families who are looking for senior living for their loved ones, whether that's assisted living, memory care. So I was doing that for a handful of months and really enjoying it. And it's an independent contract position, which is nice. It provides a lot of flexibility. That is fantastic. And then really out of nowhere, the opportunity came to me in August to step into the creative director / creative pastor position at the church I've been attending, and I'm part of the creative team there for the last 3 years. And when I say it was out of nowhere, it was actually very, very shocking that this transition was happening. And so through obviously a lot of conversation with my wife, and with the lead pastors there, and even Madeline's parents and my family, and just really praying and seeing if this was the right timing, because often even though an opportunity comes along, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right timing for the opportunity. So really trying to make sure that that's what was best for the season, and all of us kind of unanimously were on the same page, which is super exciting. So I accepted that position and still placing clients, 1 or 2 clients a month with my other job, because I have flexibility with the church as well. So all of that to say, since September 17th, officially stepped into that capacity here at the church here in Loveland. So a lot of wild, rapid transitions happening in the last month. I mean, coupled, my childhood home being sold, and my mom moving, and dealing with the emotions of that, and then going to visit her, and then in the midst, literally all of this is happening at the same time. So it's been wild to do that. And as a result of that, at the outset of my accepting the position, I was like, well, no, I had a conversation with Travis. He's like, what's that look like for the show? And I was like, I think it should be okay, because I have flexibility in both. And then I realized after 2 weeks, like, wow, it's not that I'm busy Monday and Tuesday evenings all the time, but it's that, like, the space that I have is like, I'm trying to safeguard that space, and just the rhythm of trying to, basically shift a culture of a department that's been running and doing great, but trying to make changes and just hitting the ground running. And then the placement stuff, I was like, I don't genuinely think that I can really give my full attention, not even my full attention. I can't, my bandwidth is being eaten up very, very quickly. And so as a result of that, over the last 2 weeks, I kind of told Travis, I had another conversation of like, I think it's time to chat about what it looks like for me to exit out of the print on demand cast, which is something I put off as long as I possibly could, because it's something that I genuinely have enjoyed doing, even though I haven't been in the day-to-day for the last 3 years of print on demand. I'm really facilitating as a host to the permanent guest, which is Travis, and that's basically been my role. I've not been inundated or digging into what's new, or getting the lowdown on all the new technology and stuff like that, because it just hasn't been my world for such a long time. And to peel the curtain even further back, with the placement job that I was having, I was getting busy to the point where I wasn't even really able to help with the editing side of things anymore. And so it kind of was just like this natural progression of like, okay, I think this makes sense. So again, avoided it as long as I could, but all that to say that after, well, what would now be 218 episodes, this will be my final episode with you guys here on the Print on Demand cast. I'm still in the groups, obviously. You might catch me here and there, or if Travis gets to show 300, maybe I'll pop in just to be a host or a fun side guest. I don't know. All that to say, it probably isn't the last time you're going to see me, but it's going to be a lot longer in between times, just because of where I'm at now in terms of life and bandwidth, and wanting start a family in the next year. So who knows what the future holds, but yeah, it's been obviously, I mean, Travis and I've talked about this. If you've been listening to the show for a long time, this was a kind of a passion project that we started when we were both in the industry. Kind of like, man, wouldn't it be nice if there was a show that actually gave quality insight to this industry instead of drinking from a fire hose at a table in Portland, Oregon, trying to figure out what the hell we're supposed to do with our lives? You know what I mean? Like, so there was obviously a hole in the market. And so to be able to step in and provide or attempt to provide that in the way that we felt was the best that we could, and then to hear the feedback from people, and really, like, I've said this a lot on the show, and it bears repeating, and it's genuine that it's always humbling and surprising when someone in the Facebook group reaches out, or you get a text or a message from somebody on Facebook like, hey, you guys have really helped me. Thank you so much for the show. Like, it's awesome to know that this has found a place in the kind of sphere of the print on demand world. And super excited to see where it continues to go, where Travis takes it. Doing a lot of the courses and stuff is stuff that we've talked about behind the scenes for a very long time. So to see that kind of, have legs and start to happen is awesome. So I want to thank everyone that is listening for your support and your love and your fandom, which is weird to say, weird word for me to use, but your continuous support. And also just thank Travis for inviting me into this in the beginning and having it be kind of like let's see what we can do with this thing. Lots of good times, memories, and honestly too, the reason I love the show is because it was a weekly touch point for you and I to just shoot the breeze and tell dad jokes. You know what I mean? As life gets busier, to have like, at least I'll have an hour and a half to just, talk printing and tell dumb dad jokes and have that point of connection as well. But yeah, so that's the news. Going from here on out, it'll be Travis, or if Travis gets another host or whatever, it'd be that duo. But
he's already waiting in the wings. He's been waiting for weeks.
I was gonna say he's been 2 weeks ago. He put out the ad. But can you click buttons efficiently? You're hired. That's basically what I do. Just click a lot of buttons. So yeah, all that to say, been super grateful, super thankful for the 218 episodes. Again, that's probably 216 more than we both thought we would ever make in this RSS feed. But yeah, like I said, I'll be a silent supporter, and like I said, if there's milestone episodes where it's fitting or I'm available to come in and just say, hey, how's things going? That kind of thing. Open to that. But yeah, that's the news. That's the big changes. So there you have it. Now we'll just continue on with the episode like I didn't say that, and then you guys just wonder where I am next week. So yeah, if you fast forwarded through the waffle this time again, you might want to rewind, because this waffle
go back and listen.
Informative. You might have been like, oh God, news, Josiah got another dog or something. But no, that's not that's not what the news is. So yeah, but yeah, there it is.
So yeah, I mean, guys, if you want to reach out to Josiah and tell him thank you, that would be super cool. You can do that in our Facebook group, because it is a sad day at the Print on Demand cast, but like Josiah said, it's also, it's cool that he's getting this new opportunity at his church, and it's kind of been a long time coming, and but I'm definitely going to miss, you do more than just push buttons. You're a great co-host, and it's always been fun to have somebody, like you said, it's been fun to have that connection point every week, and going to miss that for sure. I'll just have to, settle for beating you in poker every once in a while.
I was just going to say, we'll just have to, up the frequency that you beat me in poker.
Fair. I hope we can.
If you survive the other 9, well, basically Zach, because he's a wild card, but no one knows who that is. So anyway, but yeah, man, thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing where the POD cast continues to go, and
well, I'm excited. In light of this being your last show, I would like to give you the opportunity to deliver everybody's favorite part of the show, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right. So if any of you that know my wife or have, I don't know who knows my wife in this listening, but one thing you should know about my wife is that she loves line dancing. Like the amount of time she's wanted to just go to Grizzly Rose, which is a place here in Denver. She wants to line dance all the time. In fact, I'm like, I got worried for a second because of how like obsessed she was with the idea, and we discovered that she actually has an addiction to country dancing. So she's fighting that addiction, and to fight that addiction, she's actually now in a good 2-step program. And that's this week's weekly dad joke. Yeah, use that one in your water cooler talk. That was pretty funny. There's another one that was even funnier from an old show, but that's maybe not the most appropriate joke.
You devil.
That was pretty good. But yeah, I definitely like that 2-step.
2-step. Yeah, it's good. Awesome. All right. Well, going forward along again in another segment. And by the way, dear listener, we thought we would just inundate you with all of the bumpers we've ever had for every one of these segments, just as hey, remember when we had this bumper? But we actually decided to spare you all of that. So you're welcome for that. So, but with that said, we're going to go into the point of interest.
Point of interest.
That coincidentally is my favorite bumper that we've used for that segment. So yes, the point of interest. Travis, let us know.
You're hitting me in all the feels, man. I just as that thing's it's really so we have episode notes that we have every week, and we have episode 218, and then we have a title or something that we keep in our episode folders. And as that thing is playing and it's like emotional, and Josiah just shared all this stuff, and I look up and it says episode 218, the one where Josiah dies.
Which, FYI, did not name it that. So I did not.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So no, that's funny. Okay. So yeah, point of interest. You've got something that is actually really cool. And if for Etsy sellers, there's the buzzword. Everyone loves Etsy. This is actually a really dope integration. So Travis is going to share his screen and show us all about Hello Custom.
Yeah, so Hello Custom is a lot of you probably have heard about it because came on the scene, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and it was pretty popular. A lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, you can, customize really easy." It's kind of an automated customization plugin or program for your Etsy store. It uses AI to identify what the person types into that custom field, and then it uses your settings in Hello Custom to then say, okay, well, this is where the name goes. And the AI says, well, this is the name. So it puts it there. And then it uses, okay, this is where the date goes, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's been going for about a year. And recently they announced a lifetime subscription to this software. And for $69. And I was like, holy crap, I got to get this, and I couldn't necessarily justify the monthly expense because I wasn't really using it that much. But I thought, man, this is for $69, I can jump in here and surely make my money back. Plus they were talking about an Amazon integration that was coming in the next few weeks, which they have since released. It's still in beta. They're still having some issues. We're having some issues. Other people are having issues with it. But for Etsy, it's really working really, really well. And so I just wanted to share, so you basically have this approval queue, and I don't have anything in it because I actually got an order yesterday for 10 Christmas ornaments. And I'll show you. So I have these different, ornaments here. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. this one, okay, this is the one that sold right here. So the person wanted us to add the name of a company, and then I think they had like 8 people inside of the company. So the company's name would be up here, and then each one of these would be the name, and they ordered 10 of them so they could give them out as Christmas gifts to their staff or whatever. So like each one of these is actually editable, and so that technically the AI will come in here, and they've just redone some of this. They just had an update to where this could be name 1, this can be name 2, and you see the tags up here for name. They previously only had you could only customize 1 name, but now they've added to where you can do custom tags. So you can do name 1, name 2, name 3, and the AI will then recognize which one and then put it in the same font. And you can obviously change the font. You can change the font size as you set all this up. So basically what the process is that you create this ornament in Printify with generic text in it. And then you push that generic ornament, to Etsy. And then you change all of your, mock-ups and all of that stuff to show that it's customizable. You make it customizable. You explain, you put instructions for the customization. And then, it's listed. And when that product sells, it'll send it to Printify with the generic data on it. And Hello Custom, since it's kind of in the middle at that point, it sees that and it sees that SKU that you've named it, and it immediately cancels that order and then brings you back to this approval queue, which again, it's empty right now because I've already approved the order. Actually, it's in my archives. It's this one right here. And so it brings that in there. And then I go in and I make sure that it said, Rusk Bail Bonds, Larry, Kim, Dana, Landon, Tom, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then I click approve, and then it pushes it back to Printify. It duplicates the order, but sends the correct print file with it. And so then Printify fulfills it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really cool, it does take some time to set it up. But I have one of my VAs doing it, and you can see she's doing all of these different ornaments and things, and she's just creating them in Canva, and then we're pushing them, or she's bringing them here and creating them in Printify, and then obviously pushing all of that to Etsy, and then we've got some really nice listing photos that we include in that, and they're starting to sell. So we sold that 10. I sold another one for 3 the other day. And,
Yes.
it's only October 15th. So I could see a lot of these getting sold, more and more as the holidays continue to get closer and closer. So wanted to let you know. So this is the page that you can go to, and you can get like a $67 one-time lifetime access to Hello Custom. If you're interested, you can go to printondemandcast.com/Hello Custom, and you'll get the $67 deal. You'll never pay a monthly subscription fee. I mean, it used to literally be $30 a month, so
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's one-time fee, $67. And you can come here, even if you just want to look at the page and kind of watch the video and see all this other stuff. You can do all of that if you just go to, again, printondemandcast.com/Hello Custom. But yeah, that is the point of interest, really. I just thought it was
nice,
really, really cool. It's just a really cool.
Yeah, and it's a crazy. When you told me the lifetime cost, I was like, did you say $67? Because that's just a wildly inexpensive for something that could generate so much income for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. That's a massive benefit.
Yeah. And we're doing ornaments right now, but you could, obviously do, we're going to, as soon as Christmas is kind of winding down, we're going to shift our focus to more like mugs and things like that, because, Valentine's Day is coming up, as is, Mother's Day, all of those holidays, it's a very customized. I mean, we talk about it all the time. If you can personalize something, you can A, charge more for it, and B, you can probably sell more. So
Yep.
yeah, so that's the
So
point
check
of
it
interest
out.
for this week.
Printondemancast.com/hello custom if you are interested. But it looks like it's a super cool. So it's one of those things that I'm like, man, that'd have been cool if that existed when we were selling on Etsy.
For sure.
Yeah, but I guess AI was just a little late to the game for us, or we were late to the game. Early to the game.
Early.
Doesn't matter. Either way, didn't exist. Wish it did, and you can have it. Printondemancast.com/hello custom is where you can go. So with that, we're going to go into this week's main event.
Main event, 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 main event.
It's a pretty cheery bumper for a subject about the downside of POD. But we do what we can. So we talk a lot about, last week was consistency. We talked a lot about like the positive things, obviously, to keep you going, motivated. But there are some things to keep in mind about POD that I think we've called it before, like the seedy underbelly of POD, which is very much more of like a murder mystery vibe that would have fit the other bumper. But nonetheless, there's just some stuff that you have to keep in mind. That's, I guess, like a classic pro and cons list. I just watched that episode of The Office where Jim was making pro and cons lists, and that's kind of what this is. Like, we tell you a lot about the pros. There could be some cons that you want to keep in mind. So we have a list here. Is it exhaustive? No. Is it informative? Yes. So we're going to start at the top here with lower profit margins. So Travis, talk a little bit about what that downside means when we talk about lower profit margins and why it's something to kind of keep in mind when venturing into POD.
Yeah, I mean, when you're comparing, obviously lower profit margins is kind of subjective to what you're comparing it to, but typically when we're talking about printing, most people think when you talk about like garment printing or apparel decoration, they think of screen printing, and POD products are one-offs versus most screen printing. It doesn't make sense really until you get to, 24 or more, really more, like, it really starts to get really efficient after you get over 100, and so when you're comparing it to that, I mean, there's no economy of scale in print on demand because every single print uses the same amount of ink, give or take, and it takes the same amount of time, give or take. You don't have the economies of scale that you do with screen printing because you're doing the same design over and over, and you just, they have these automatic screen printing machines that we see at Printing United and the impression show that are just bam, 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 and they're just printing 400, 500, 600 garments an hour, and all they have is somebody loading a shirt, and they have another guy taking the shirt off, and that's it. And so there's just a lot more when it comes to print on demand because every design is different. So you have to, theoretically load that design. If you're just doing screen printed transfers, you still have to pull the thing out, load the shirt, line up the transfer or whatever, push it in, pull it down. There are some automatic, they use air pressure, and they'll like one will go down and then you can be loading the other side and then it'll pop and then it'll come over and print, and then you can pull this one and do this, so I mean there are some efficiencies that are happening along with screen printed transfer and even DTF, since direct to film printing has gotten more and more popular. A lot more people are investing in efficiencies for doing transfers because that is lowering the cost, but still ultimately print on demand, the way we're talking about it, you're going through a Printful or a Printify. There's no way you're going to get the same pricing that you're going to get if you had, if you ordered, 40 shirts, of this design, even if there were multiple sizes, they're still the same design. And then you did 40 shirts of this one and 40 shirts of this one and 40 shirts of this one. Your cost per garment is going to be really low. Now, is that going to sell through? I don't know. You better have really good marketing and you better have a really good design. and that's the challenge. Therein lies the rub, right? You pay more for the lower risk that you're taking. But yes, definitely lower profit margins if you're comparing screen printing, specifically buying in bulk, to print on demand, buying one at a time.
Yeah. The second one on the list is longer shipping times, because obviously some POD providers can take longer to fulfill and ship the orders than traditional retailers, just because it takes time for the product to be produced. And that's something that I remember specifically, especially we talk a lot about the age of like Amazon Prime, where people are like, hey, can I get this in 2 days, or can I get this next day, 1 day Prime? And the people have been kind of conditioned to that just being the default delivery time of some things, without understanding like, yeah, we're not that. We're a mom and pop shop in Colorado that it's going to take time. We have to produce it, or we have to, our print partner has to produce it. And so that's one thing that can be, you have to keep in mind, because it can lead to customer dissatisfaction at times.
Yeah. I mean, anytime, like you said, they've been conditioned to 2 days. Delivery times keeps getting lower and lower. And the only way you can combat that is if you do go the Temu route and like charge $3 for something, then people will be okay waiting 2 to 3 weeks, but there's no profit in that for us, for people who are in the US anyway. First of all, we can't even ship it to you for $3, alone produce it and, take the time to make it, and et cetera, et cetera. So, so people want to get it super fast. And so the problem with print on demand, think about every other retailer, e-commerce retailer in the world, that's selling a widget. Well, they sell a widget and they just go to the bin on the wall and pick up the widget and put it in a box and ship it. We have to go get the blank, bring it over to the printer, find the file, put it through the pre-treatment machine, or whatever, and then print it and then dry it, and then it's ready. So there's definitely a longer time than most, even the screen printing guy. The screen printing guy already printed them all, and they're just sitting on a shelf, so he can just go and grab it and ship it. So typically print on demand does give you longer shipping times, just because of the fact that it has to be produced.
Yeah. The next one on the list, higher competition, which, I mean, I guess it's kind of like anything. I know in Amazon, when you first got into Amazon, it was great, because there's, if you're an early adopter of selling on Amazon, but this is getting more and more saturated in terms of POD platforms, which can make it challenging to stand out, because it's a low barrier of entry that can lead to like the flood of similar products. And I think another thing that is contributing to that barrier of entry is, I mean, you've seen the videos just as well as I have, dear listener, and it's like, hey, I'll teach you how to go from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months using POD. And so people are just flooding these platforms because they're being sold to them as a get rich quick platform or scheme or what have you. But nonetheless, the result's the same. There's a lot of people doing a lot of the same thing, which is why it's important for you to figure out how to stand out. I've shared the story 1,000 times about my father-in-law wanting to start a novelty t-shirt website just because we had the assets available to us. And it's like, cool, but like, how are we going to be different from all of the other ones that have already been doing this for 10 years?
Right.
How do you stand out? So that's part of the discussion. What you got to think about is how can I stand out? Because people are going to come on the platforms, and it's going to get more saturated. It's going to happen. But how do I differentiate myself so that even though that is happening, I'm not worried about them taking my market share, because I've really defined the niche or defined what it is that I'm offering on those platforms.
Yeah, I mean, one way is through niche. Another way is through products. There are some pretty cool and unique products out there that not everybody's necessarily doing, and so maybe considering going and figuring out, because it can be hard work to like figure out a new vendor, and then figuring out a new vendors, the way they want the files, and but there's some cool products out there that not a lot of people are necessarily offering. And if it works with your niche, that can really go a long way towards helping you stand out, like Josiah is saying.
Absolutely. Next on this list is quality control issues. Um, if you're using a drop shipper, you don't really handle the products before they're shipped. So there's a risk of those QC issues happening, like either misaligned prints or damaged products, or the color's not the same as it looked on the site. It's
gosh.
something that it's going to happen, and we've talked about this before. The way to preempt that is, get samples and at least know as much as you can about what it is your provider is going to be selling you, or not selling you, but selling on your behalf, creating on your behalf, because the customer is not going to care that you didn't handle the product. They're going to want answers, and mistakes happen. But in this instance, when you're drop shipping, you don't have a lot of control over knowing if you'll be surprised most of the time, but that the mistakes did happen. But how do you figure that out? How do you navigate that? Because you're not the ones actually with hands on the product.
Yeah, I actually shared. Let me see if I could share this really quick. The let's see here. I shared this in our newsletter. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Let's see here. Let's see if I can share this. Yeah, this amazing little coffee mug that got sent to my customer.
Nice.
And for those of you who can't see it, it's actually upside down. So like the print is upside down. And so I had to take a picture of it to get a refund from my vendor.
It's so that you could enjoy it while you're drinking it. See, so it's right side up to you and you're tipping the cup.
Apparently that's probably what it was. But I mean, that's such a perfect example of this. You don't touch the inventory. And so, I mean, to be fair, when I did have a print company, like when we were actually fulfilling all of these orders, that would still happen. But most of the time we'd catch it before we sent it out, and so, but I'll bet there were a few times that it went out and it was, upside down or crooked or whatever. But, having it all in house, can help you with some of those quality control issues. And most people that are doing print on demand, they don't have it in house. And so therefore this can become an issue. So you really want to make sure, A, you got a good print vendor, and B, you got a print vendor that's going to own up to their mistakes if they screw up, So luckily we use Guten, and they're like, yep, sorry, we'll redo this. As a matter of fact, just the other day, there was one that was kind of blurry, and the customer sent it back. And because it's what's called ghosting, when the transfer paper kind of moves while it's still sublimating. And that happened. The customer sent it back, and Guten said, I took a picture of it, and Guten said, yep, we'll refund that. So sorry. So yeah, just make sure you have a good print vendor. And if they make a mistake, they'll own it.
Yeah. Next one on the list is inconsistent inventory. Hello, 2020. POD suppliers run out of stock, and they discontinue certain products without notice. So you really have to keep a monitor on what is available to you. Don't just assume that the Toltex 202 is always going to be the Toltex 202, because it won't always be that. And then it will
TSC
be gone,
don't even exist anymore.
It doesn't even exist anymore, which was sad. They were my favorite supplier just because they were local and they were close. But you can't just, it's not always a set it and forget it scenario, because things could be discontinued. Contracts with brands could fall through with these suppliers. Who knows? There's a myriad of reasons why inventory can be inconsistent. And so, again, talking about 2020, COVID was the epitome of out of stock from a manufacturer level, not just like a supplier level, but a manufacturer level, where there was just so much that was not available. And so to the extent where we added a segment to this show that was temporary, just called Apparel Rants, because we would just vent to each other about the nonsense that was happening during that time.
I feel like we need to play that bumper though. Where is it? I don't see it.
That's the equipment rants. We never made them for apparel. We have them for equipment though.
Huh. Oh, it's probably before we were using it in here, and we just had I was just recording it into audio. Yeah. Yep. That's sad. Well, it went like this. Apparel rants. Okay, that's how it went.
Yeah. All that time searching for
basically
a button, and you could have
No.
just done that.
fair. No, I was going to say with this inconsistent, just one more point on the inconsistent inventory. Even right now, we've gotten over the last couple of weeks, I've gotten like some notifications from some of the print on demand vendors that it's like, hey, some of our stuff is affected by the hurricanes, and the storms that are happening.
Yeah.
And so you just don't know because you don't hold it, and you don't even necessarily all the time. You don't necessarily know where your vendors are located. You don't know what's gonna, is it going to be hurricanes in the south or tornadoes in the Midwest or, I don't know, like earthquakes in California or whatever. You just don't necessarily know what's going on with your print vendor and how that's going to potentially affect either their ability to produce, which is kind of the case right now, or like in 2020, a global pandemic where it's going to affect their ability to even get the product in the first place so they can decorate it for you and send it to your customer.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a hard time just across the board, obviously, in 2020.
Apparel rants.
Apparel rants. It's over. Until next time. Next one is complex international shipping. Now, Travis, I know this is something that you have had plenty of frustrating experiences over in the days of wanting to sell internationally, but there's a whole other list of rules when it comes to international selling, and it usually varies by country, and you got to know, because if you don't, it's gonna suck. So talk a little bit about that, Travis, like the differences, how that can be a downside, because you think like, well, I'm expanding internationally, that's obviously a good thing, which it is, but there's some the devil's in the details, right? So there's some issues you need to be aware of when you expand.
Yeah, I think one thing is just understanding that it's going to cost more to get your stuff where it needs to go a lot of the times. And to be fair, like there are print on demand companies that are remedying this, and but even then it's still a challenge. So like back in 2018, 2019, I was selling Amazon, selling in Europe on Amazon, and I was using Printful for that side, for those sales that were happening in Europe, and then anything that would happen in the US, we would fulfill ourselves. And I just remember, like, first of all, a lot of those orders, for whatever reason, would get lost. They'd never make it. And I was always like, why? Because every country has a different format for putting their address in. And sometimes Printful would be like, this isn't a real address. And I'm like, well, the customer gave it to us. Of course it's a real address. Let's figure it out. And so I'd have to sometimes cancel orders. But even then, the VAT tax, I was never able. It's like, hey, I'm reselling this. Why do I have to pay tax on it? I'd never understood. But there's like a 20% tax on me, and the customers, it's just weird. It's just different. It's not like my brand. And I know some of our listeners from Europe and from the UK, and they're all like, oh, Travis, it's so easy. It's so simple because it's just A, B, C, D. And it makes total sense to you because you've lived in that country for however, you understand it. It's just a day, day to day of, or it's just another day in your life. Where me from the US, it's like so outside of my, in the US, it's
out of your grid. You have no grid for.
I have a sales tax license and I don't pay sales tax on things I resell, period.
Yeah.
But why am I getting taxed on these European? So understanding that kind of thing makes it a little bit, challenging. And so, and then the other thing is like, does your vendor even have a facility that's close enough to that particular country or that where the sale actually happened that you're not going to pay a stupid amount to get it there, And so it's kind of like, it's buyer beware / lister beware, print on demand business owner beware.
Yeah.
Make sure that how much you're going to spend if you are listing internationally, how much it's going to cost you to get it to that person, and then change your prices accordingly on those international, or charge enough shipping that it's going to cover you no matter what. Because there have been times when I have lost money shipping internationally because I didn't cover my butt, with
Yeah.
my shipping charge. So I learned really quick and it didn't happen again, but you get the idea. It's only going to happen once. And you're either
You'll
going to
feel it.
stop shipping. Yeah. You're either going to stop shipping internationally or you're going to raise that international shipping price. So just
Yep.
understand that can be an issue and it can be a challenge. And it's something you just need to address.
Yeah. Next one on the list, as we almost are done, second to last here, branding limitations. And I think that's something we've talked about too here is, a lot of the POD platforms have some restrictions on adding custom branding elements or custom packaging or inserts or labels. Yeah. So if you're trying to start a brand, and have a particular aesthetic or a particular look and design, above and beyond just what's on your shirts. If you're wanting more of an experience, a customer experience beyond just purchasing your shirt, some of the POD platforms might not be the best solution for you. But all that to say, there's still, print on demand fulfillment providers that can partner with a Shopify or a third party site, which is a whole nother ball of wax when you're talking about marketing and, again, cutting through the noise. But just know that don't expect to be able to customize the customer experience beyond their ability to customize their shirt or purchase your item. And Travis, you were saying that Printful is kind of making strides to remedy this kind of issue as far as lack of branding.
There are companies that like Printful that will allow you to put a custom insert in your package. You can customize your labels, and it's all for a fee. But like we used to fulfill for a brand that really wanted to make sure that brand or that experience was really great for their customer. And so they wanted to go as far as having us get, mailers for them that we only used for them, and we said no to that because again we are doing mass production. Now we did eventually, they sent us a bunch of stickers, and for an extra buck we threw stickers in that they had produced and they sent to us, and we put those in so the customer would have a sticker with their brand name on it. And so some print on demand companies are getting better at this. You can do some, I know Merchize has some box options that you can like figure out, you can print a box basically to go with certain products, not all their products. So they're understanding that this is a pain point specifically for brands. I think the other thing Printful does, and maybe Printify, I can't quite remember. I'm sure people are yelling at their radio right now, or their stereos, or driving down they have a radio in their car.
I know.
They're playing it through Bluetooth. Okay, see, I'm still cool.
Boy, next time here on Put on a Man Cast Radio. Will Travis have another point of interest? Tune in next time.
Anyway, I think it might be, I don't know, but I know you can do with certain, I think Printful allows you to do like custom neck labels on t-shirts and garments like that too, again, for an extra fee. But I mean, by the time you do all of that, you better have a really good brand presence, because you're going to be paying a lot for that shirt, or for that whatever by the time you do all that stuff. But I think that's the idea, is that it's such a premium experience, but you're never going to be able to personalize it or really brand it to the point that you could if you were doing it all in-house and it was your product, and maybe you had it screen printed, but you had those custom labels done and you have it all sitting on the shelf, and you bought the custom packaging, and you've got the stickers right there, and every order comes through and you're doing the thing. That's a whole nother deal, but that's not print on demand. That's buying in bulk and crossing your fingers that they'll sell.
Yep. The last one on the list is customer service control. We talked about quality control, but now you're talking about customer service control. So since the production and shipping processes are managed by obviously not you and your production partner and your provider, any issues, delays, returns, product defects might be out of your control in terms of the process, what they're what they accept, what they don't accept, what it looks like to initiate a return. And again, we've talked about this before, of really educating yourself on what that process is so that you can speak intelligently to your customer and at least have an idea of what they can expect in that process. And when you're looking for a provider, really digging into those questions of how does your return process work? How does it work if something's defective? Because you're going to, again, the customer is going to want to hear from you. And it's the worst feeling when you are the middleman left in the lurch with really no control over the solution or how expedient the solution can happen. You're at kind of the mercy of your provider. And Travis, I know you've had experience with that with some wine tumblers recently.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily just the process of like returns and stuff, but it's also the process of like the cancellation, like when is too late to send this product. And so what happened with the wine tumblers was during the hurricanes, it's very recent. Our vendor, Guten's vendor for black wine tumblers, they were unable to get a new shipment. And it was partially because the shipment was delayed by the manufacturer, but then it was, even as it was on its way, they like delayed it even further because of the hurricanes. And meanwhile, my customer is sitting there twiddling their thumbs and saying, "Hey, I have an event on October, I think it was October, like right around now, like 12th or 13th or something."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And so I reached out to Guten. We found out that this whole thing was happening. So I was able to work with this customer and cancel that order and have them reorder white because the client had, or I mean, the vendor had white and tumblers. And so we just changed the color. But I had to immediately go in and like turn off all of the black wine tumblers on all of our listings until I hear, that they're back in stock.
Otherwise,
and so it's not just quality control. It's like it's just out of your hands, but that feeling of like being that middleman and you're just waiting on your vendor's answer with bated breath and, hoping that they get back to you before your customer is just really, really upset. And you're like hoping that, Amazon or Etsy doesn't come down on you in the meantime while you're waiting. And, that is a downside. You are the middleman essentially when you're relying on these print on demand companies to ship your stuff for you. And you don't know each channel, Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, Shopify. Shopify is different because it's really your channel, but all of these, they have different, like you said, they have different customer service expectations. And so what does that look like in this particular instance? And, it definitely hurt my metrics to have to cancel after like almost 2 weeks of waiting. But in the end, I was able to serve the customer and I still saved the sale. But, it definitely hurt my metrics and there's nothing I can do about it. I had to cancel another order too and say I didn't have any inventory. That was another one that had come in before I was able to, unlist all of the black wine tumblers. So just sucked, man. Just really sucked.
Yeah. The ripple effects can be really wide, like the effects of those kinds of things. Like you said, not just not just returns and defects, but canceling orders and the delays and all of that just plays into that. So that wraps up the main event portion, the list that we have. If you have any other thoughts or questions, or maybe you have another downside that maybe we haven't thought of, or you have a story about experiencing one of these downsides and how you overcame it, what happened, we'd love to hear from you. Of course, you can go to the Facebook group, or you can reply to the weekly email that is sent out to you, which if you're not subscribed to that, it's printondemandcast.com/VIP. And it is filled with tips, tricks, and an extra dad joke that you don't hear on the show. So avail yourself of that. But before we get out of here in totality, Travis, you had a challenge that you gave to the listening audience last week. So talk a little bit about that and let's check in and see how they're doing.
Yeah. Last week we were talking about consistency and, as a result, I kind of challenged everybody. I was like, "Hey, let's see let's put 5 listings up a day. Maybe you could choose to back it off to 3, or whatever, or do 10, just whatever you wanted to do. But I created a kind of a tracker, a weekly listing creation tracker that several of you downloaded. But if you weren't aware of it, or you forgot to download it or whatever, you can go to printondemandcast.com/listing-tracker. And again, that'll be in the show notes, but it's just a Google sheet. You can copy it, put it in your Google Drive, and then you can enter in how many you want to try to, attempt to do that week. And then it'll extrapolate how many that means per day. And then you can actually enter in how many you're doing a day. But I'd love to hear if you actually did download that and you actually are using it. How'd you do? How'd you do in the last week? Or maybe you started it on Monday or whatever. How are things going? Please reach out to me and let me know. Post in the Facebook group, do a screenshot of your first week, post that in there or whatever. Send it to me, info@printondemandcast.com. So would love to hear how that's going. And again, if you haven't started and you want to jump in on that challenge to get more listings up there for Q4, then go download that tracker. Hopefully that'll help you. And I'd love to hear some like wins, some consistency happening in our Print on Demand cast community.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, let Travis know how you're doing, or as Australians say, how you going. Let him know how you going on that. And which is really weird slang. They're all very strange slang. Sorry. To our Australian fans. Their slang is interesting.
We just lost all of those Australian listeners.
All right.
Way to go.
My fault. My parting gift to you. So thank you guys so much for listening. And again, thank you again for the constant support over the last 218 episodes. Means the world to me, and I will miss all of you. But like I said, I'll be watching from a distance. And so and supporting and a silent supporter, but look forward again to the time, whenever that might be, that I pop back on and say hello. But thank you guys so much for your support and for listening. So until next time, and for the last time, I'm Josiah. And I totally botched that just now. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It was so good. And then I just straight up ruined it. Anyway.
Yep.
True international average of pressure.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for.
I know you were.
I couldn't find it. I was looking for the outro button, and I was looking to say all the things and try to have it be heartfelt. Anyway, like I was saying, until next time, for the last time, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.